Hey everyone, this is Mike and welcome to Paladin in 6 minutes. Before we jump into skills, let's briefly touch on the different phases that Paladin has in his rotation, as they're a little bit special compared to the other tanks. We have 3 DPS phases. Usually we start with our physical damage buff, during which we perform our physical attacks, followed by a magical damage phase, during which we of course use our magical attacks. And then the third phase is sort of like a cooldown phase where we do not have a damage buff active and you use your normal physical combos during this. So let's start off with that, your physical combos. First one is called Goring Blade. This will apply a damage over time effect on the enemy, and the second hit in the combo also regenerates mana for you. Second combo is called Royal Authority. Again, second hit in the combo regenerates mana, as the first 2 skills in the combo are the same as with Goring Blade, but the third hit will grant you 3 stacks of Sword Oath. These stacks will allow us to use a skill called Atonement, and then each time we cast the skill, we will use 1 Sword Oath stack, meaning that you can use the skill 3 times. Atonement will also regenerate mana for you. So our physical phase will look something like this. We use our Goring Blade to apply the damage over time, Royal Authority to gain the Sword Oath stacks, and then 3 Atonements to spend those stacks, and after that it is time to reapply our Goring Blade dot. If your fight or flight damage buff is ready, you will want to use it after the first hit of your Goring Blade combo, and then it will last for the whole physical damage phase. So let's move over to our magical phase. This we only want to do while under the effect of our damage buff called Requiescat. This will do 3 things for us. 1. It does damage on its own. 2. It grants us a magical damage and a healing up buff if your mana is 80% or higher. And 3. It allows us to cast our spells without needing to wait out the cast bar. So in other words, they become instant casted spells. During this Requiescat buff, we will be using 2 skills. Holy Spirit is our spammable skill, and Confiteor is our combo finisher. When we use Confiteor, the effect of Requiescat will also end. So for our magical damage phase, we want to be using Requiescat, followed up by 4 Holy Spirits, and then ending it with a Confiteor. And then it is time to reapply that Goring Blade dot again, and then from there you just rinse and repeat. There is an alternative rotation, which I will link down below if you're interested in it, but this is considered your standard rotation when learning Paladin. You start off with Fight or Flight, during which you use your Goring Blade, then Royal Authority, 3 Atonements, Goring Blade again, Requiescat, Holy Spirits and Confiteor, and then another phase of Goring Blade with Royal Authority and Atonements before starting your Fight or Flight buff again on the next reapplication of your Goring Blade dot. So let's cover some skills that we haven't touched on yet. Our AoE combo is a simple 1-2 combo. Second hit will restore some mana for us because we also have a magical AoE attack. So you can still use both Fight or Flight and Requiescat whilst you're doing AoE damage. Shield Bash is a stun that is on a global cooldown, so you can spam this, but it's generally not used unless it's really needed in a very niche scenario. Spirits Within is an off-global cooldown that just deals damage and restores mana. Its damage also goes up the higher your HP is, but normally you just use this on cooldown. Circle of Scorn is an AoE damage over time skill, again use it on cooldown. And Intervene is your gap closer that stacks up to 2 times, but you want to try and save both charges for when you enter your Fight or Flight buff. Of course, if you need it for the gap closer, then by all means use it for that. So let's talk about our defensive stuff. As always, Rampart, 20% mitigation, Reprisal is an AoE damage reduction on enemies, and I also forgot to mention in the previous videos, Arm's Length. This reduces the attack speed of enemies that hit you by 20%, although this only really works in dungeons, not on normal boss fights, but still honorable mention. Clemency is a single target heal that you can use on either yourself or a party member. If you decide to heal a party member, then you will also receive 50% of the heal that you just did. And yes, this does work with Requiescat, although it is a skill that you generally only use in emergency scenarios to keep yourself alive if your healer died, for example. Sheltron is your spammable mitigation and makes you block attacks. This skill is tied to your Oath gauge and will consume 50 gauge when used. You gain Oath gauge by just auto-attacking. Sentinel is your 30% damage reduction, nothing special here. Cover will allow you to take all of the damage that was intended for a party member, so in other words, you can take a tank buster while not being the one that is first on aggro, for example. And again, this costs 50 Oath gauge. Intervention reduces the damage taken by a party member by 10%, and you can also make this stronger by using Rampart or Sentinel, as that will add 50% of the damage reduction of those spells on top of the 10% that is already there. So a great skill to use when both of the tanks are gonna be hit by a tank buster, for example, or when both tanks are taking damage. Hallowed Ground makes you invulnerable for 10 seconds, but it has a very long cooldown, so it's amazing for the effect, but very long cooldown tied to it. Divine Veil is a shield, but it works a bit different from the other mitigation that tanks have, as when you activate it, you gain a buff that lasts for 30 seconds, and then if you get healed by either yourself with Clemency or a healer using a GCD heal on you, Scholar's Fairy can also progress if you get lucky, but once you receive that heal, then everyone will be granted a shield, everyone but you. You don't get the shield yourself. And then last but not least, Passage of Arms makes you block every incoming attack, and it will also create a safe zone behind you within your wings, wherein your party members take 15% reduced damage. If you want to hold the skill for an extended period of time, then you also can't use other skills, because using something else will cancel the effect of Passage of Arms. And that does it for Paladin in 6 minutes. So I want to thank you for watching, I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.